Hey guys, Sausage here. What if a game tells you you're saving the world, but you're actually the one destroying it? Today, we're reviewing Terminal Mass, a $3 indie FPS with PS1 horror vibes and a surprisingly weird story. Is it worth your time, or does it collapse under its own weight? Let's talk about that. So, the story. You play as Agent, just Agent, and you're selected by your government to perform a job where you have to enter a structure called the domain and prevent something called terminal mass. You're told everything inside is hostile and to avoid an entity named Alrion. I don't know how to pronounce it. Let's keep going. The game begins with you in a shack, and there's warnings scribbled on the wall such as "Wake up, lost lamb," and "Do not seek the others." After entering the domain, a voice begins guiding you, and this entity instructs you to collect 3 organs from 3 major creatures: the worm, the sentry, and the beast. These organs are used to create a final solution to deal with the domain. The game takes place across 3 different sectors or levels or areas, whatever you want to call them. There's the guts, the pipeworks, and the belly of the beast. Moving on to the gameplay, it's a first-person shooter with mission-based progression, and the core loop is about entering different levels, completing the objectives, and then returning to the hub world. These missions include killing enemies or destroying structures that are part of the level, not necessarily enemies, and searching for blueprints that unlock weapons or upgrades. Each of the 3 sectors or levels or areas, worlds, whatever you want to call them, they end with a boss fight, with the first one being a burrowing worm, the second one being a large aquatic sentry, and the last one being a heart-based final boss encounter. As for the weapons, there's over 16 total options, and these guns range from rifles to shotguns to SMGs. Now, I did say one of the missions earlier was collecting blueprints. These blueprints will then unlock upgrades to those weapons. So let's say you'll start with SMG level 1. When you get the first blueprint, you'll get SMG level 2, that sort of thing. When you're inside the level, though, there's this upgrade system. It's kind of like a roguelite element where you can collect scrap metal from downed enemies or inside of lockers, and you can use that scrap metal to purchase temporary upgrades during the missions. And some of these upgrades have effects such as increased damage or increased crit chance, or a chance to have damage reduction. It's a nice little element. One thing I do want to touch on is the ammo system. So when you're reloading, you discard the entire magazine. It doesn't matter how much ammo is in there. If you have 30 bullets or just one, when you reload, you'll cast away the magazine, and whatever's in there, you lose. So you have to be careful when reloading. The last thing I want to touch on with the gameplay, and this kind of goes into the graphics and the art and everything, is the HUD design. The reticle, for when you're aiming, it displays 3 different numbers. The first number in the top left, it shows how much ammo you have in the magazine. The number on the top right, that shows how many magazines you have left. Now, the bottom number, I'm not entirely sure, but if I had to guess, I think that's showing you the distance between you and whatever target you're aiming at. Moving on to the graphics, it's got a low poly PS1 style aesthetic. You can go into the settings and turn off the retro visual filter if you wanted. The developer recommends that you don't, but you can if it's bothering your PC too much. And there are 3 distinct environments to this game. The first one being the industrial, ruined, rusted megastructure. That's kind of what the hub world is, but also the guts level. The second level is a sewer-like level. It's called the Pipeworks, and it's got brick and stone and metal grates and water systems. And the last level being the belly of the beast, and it's a completely organic, I don't know if organic's the right word, but it's a flesh-themed level. The walls and the ceilings and everything, it's all made of flesh. And the visual design really emphasizes 3 different things: isolation, decay, and body horror elements. Lastly, let's talk about the value or the amount of time you'll get out of this game. Terminal Mass costs $3.50 on Steam. I got about 2 hours of gameplay out of it, and I earned 8 of the 9 achievements. With all of that said, Terminal Mass earns a rating of 7.3 sausages out of 10. So let's start with the good. The story is interesting and it's easy to follow if you're paying attention. The reticle HUD system, super clean, genuinely cool. Each area feels visually distinct, especially the pipeworks. That was my favorite level. And for $3.50, the value is honestly pretty solid. But there are definitely some issues. The game leans heavily on shooting the same enemies over and over and over. The enemy variety feels limited and more like slight variations rather than fully new types of enemies. For example, there's one enemy that floats, that's pretty unique. But then there's a handful of enemies that are on the ground, and one of them will walk towards you, but then there's another one who walks towards you a little bit faster, and he's got like spikes for arms. They're kind of the same enemy.
Same, but different. But still same.
As for the difficulty, well, it's all over the place. The first boss, it's pretty fair. You know, it's a first boss. It's supposed to tell you that it's going to be a little bit more challenging than the normal enemies, but it's not supposed to be super difficult. The second boss, way harder than everything else in the game. I died 5 or 6 times in the entire game, with like 3 or 4 of those deaths being on this boss. I don't know why it was so difficult. I don't know if maybe I was doing something wrong, but it was ridiculously difficult. But then the final boss was weirdly easy. It barely even felt like an encounter. The progression felt a little bit off. I barely needed to switch weapons for most of the game. Really, I didn't start experimenting with different weapons until I got to the second boss, and the upgrades didn't feel necessary until I hit that second boss. Identity-wise, the game feels just a little bit confused. It looks like a story-driven game. It feels like it might be a roguelite, but it kind of sits awkwardly in the middle of both. And the story itself, it's cool, but it ends pretty quickly. You spend most of that time shooting instead of developing the narrative, and that's totally fine, but with the narrative that I've been given, it feels like it's really deep, and it's just kind of not. So Terminal Mass is a short, experimental indie FPS with a really cool concept. The atmosphere and visual design carry a lot of the experience. The story is intriguing, even if it's a little bit brief. The gameplay is solid, but doesn't evolve much over time. It's not trying to be a massive AAA experience, and it's a small, weird, focused game, and for the price, that mostly works. So if you enjoy weird indie horror shooters with some experimental ideas, this might be worth checking out. And maybe don't trust the voice in your head next time. I don't know if that outro makes much sense. It's because of the lady talking to you, the entity. Anyway, that's my review of Terminal Mass. If you got this far, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a little comment below. But if not, just know that I appreciate your viewership nonetheless. I also stream on Twitch occasionally. I have a Discord for both content creators and casual viewers alike, and I'm a Steam curator, so consider following me on all of those platforms as well. I'll leave a link to everything in the description below. Anyway, I think I'm going to cut my review here. Mahoney out.